And again, I want to go later in the show, I want to reiterate why I even do any of this. Because again, for anybody who's just starting to listen or has been listening, and you think I do this because I like people, that I want to say, quote unquote, save people, please, I'm not anybody's savior, okay? I don't even like people, to be honest. I do not really like people. I want to be left alone. That's why really what the goal I want out of this all. Okay? I want people to understand the non-aggression principle and the principles of self-defense. I want them to understand what true freedom is. I want them to understand what rights are and what rights are not. And I want to be left alone. And I want them to leave other people alone if they want to be left alone. I'm not in this for a popularity contest. I don't want to be liked. I don't want new friends. I don't want any new friends. I don't want you to like me. I don't care if you like me. All I want you to do is understand the information on your own. Go through it on your own. Make of what you will of it and then go do something with it. And you don't need to take it from me. It's not because it is me. Okay? You can go take it from somebody else. I don't care how you acquire it. Understand what's real. Stop believing in fantasy like authority and government. And stop advocating for human slavery by the continuation of those belief systems. That's all I care about. And I'm doing this not to serve people, but to serve truth. I've said that repeatedly. I don't even like people. Okay? I'm being totally and completely honest about this. I want to be left alone as much as possible. That's what the non-aggression principle is about. Leaving other people alone. That's the number one human right, is to be left alone. So I want to go back to the things I tell people. In this vitriolic, bitter speech. It's bitter. I'm bitter about even having to do this. I'm bitter that this is what my life has become. This is what I'm doing because there's a responsibility to do it, and I'm fulfilling that responsibility. That's it. I know it's right. I do it because it's right. And don't tell me I can't choose to be bitter about that, because I want my life to be something better than what it is right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not wrong for wanting not to have to do this here while I'm alive here on Earth. Don't tell me that makes me any kind of a bad person because I don't want to teach ignoramuses what I already know. I don't want to do this. People say, well, why do you keep doing it? Because I have a responsibility. Because there's ignorant people. They're going to create total chaos in the world unless somehow their mind is taken out of the absolute garbage, sewage state that it is in and brought up to a higher level of awareness and consciousness. Do I have to like that job? No. I'm cleaning out the sewers, folks. That's my job. I clean the sewers of the world, along with many other people who do work like this. We are drudging up all of the garbage that has accumulated in the mass psyche of humanity, trying to somehow clean it out. That's what we are. We are garbage people. We are garbage haulers, you could look at it as. I told people it's like being a waiter, serving something to somebody, and you're waiting. As in you're staying there waiting for them to catch up, waiting for them to take this into themselves so that they are as filled with the knowledge as other people have become, as very few other people have become. And that involves waiting a long time. That doesn't mean I'm their servant. I happen to be a waiter, like a waiter in a restaurant. It's a very appropriate name in green language terms, because you're handing something to somebody that came from elsewhere. Okay, that truth is actually putting the information on the plate. Then I'm taking it and saying, here it is. Take a look. Here it is. Here it's arranged like this. Take it into yourself. And I'm sitting there waiting for them to catch up, to be full with the knowledge. So the term waiter is very appropriate for what this job is about. And I would also look at it as sanitation. I work in sanitation now. Mental, emotional, and spiritual sanitation. So how many people really would think that that's something that people would so love to do? No, but is it necessary? It's necessary. Is it a responsibility? It's a responsibility. That doesn't mean I like it or have to feel good about it. I want my life to live in peace, to do what I want to do with it. I would like to go and learn some gardening techniques. I would like to get better as an artist. I do some artwork. I do digital graphics and manipulation of graphics, and I think I have a pretty good aesthetic eye. I've tried my hand at painting, and I think I have some talent there, but I would like to work on that more with my time and really hone artistic skills and capabilities, which I think are latent within me. And I don't spend that time doing that because I do work like this. You know, I would like to have more time to, you know, do other forms of, volunteering, maybe with animals or something. I love animals. I want to spend more time with my animals. But I spend time doing this work because this is the main responsibility in the world right now. If we don't want to see the world collapse to total and utter crap, quite frankly, which it's well on the way to doing, and is already most of the way there, to be quite honest. And you still have people nitpicking. So to these nitpickers, what I write is, show me your big website with all your data that you've put thousands of free hours of work into accumulating. Where is it? Where's your testimony to the world? Online. Not written on some paperwork in your house where nobody can see it. Online. Okay? Where's, if you don't have your own site, show me the other forum that you work out of. Okay, podcasting forums, or being on other host shows. I say, where can I pick up your latest world-changing book? Where can I pick up your latest world-changing documentary video? Or maybe you don't have a knack online, so maybe you write books, you get them published, and you sell them throughout the world. Where's your big book, or your series of smaller books? Okay, I want to know, where's all this data? Where is it all at that you're helping humanity with? You have so much time to write to people and nitpick their work, but where's your work at? Barring that, how about profound web videos you made? Maybe you can tinker around with Windows Movie Maker or iMovie or any other open source movie making software. Okay? Where's your web video? Point me to a YouTube site, a YouTube channel where I can see all your videos and check them out. Where's your live presentations? Hey, you could just take your phone, have a friend hold it and give a presentation and then post it. Where's that at? You know where it is?
Continue.
That's where it is. It's nowhere. Nowhere. A big goose egg. Sound the gong, press the buzzer, bzzz, zero. All the time. Not just some of the time, all of the time. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, I am not lying to you. 100%, barring none, 100% of every criticism I have ever received, I have asked, please show me your work that you have put out there that refutes this. And not one person ever writes back with so much as a link, as a URL in the email to say, this is my work, I have put this out, here it is, check it out. I would at least have respect. Even if you wanted to totally crush some aspect of my work, and I would go and look at it, and if it panned out, I would even say I was wrong. But you never even hear that from anybody. You never even hear that from, you never hear one word of response when you ask them, where is your work? Nothing. Silence comes back, ladies and gentlemen, silence. And again, this is another part of why I'm going to vent on this show. I'm going to express vitriolic speech, and I'm going to take a step back and reevaluate things. And I'm going to refocus my efforts in a different way. Okay? So that's what this first podcast is really ultimately all about. I want to reiterate why I do what I do. It's going to continue in a different form. and ultimately why I feel like I need to take a step back, because I'm burning myself out, trying to cast pearls before swine in many cases. And it's not to say I'm going to stop and withhold information, because information isn't mine to withhold. It belongs to all of humanity. It belongs to the universe. Okay? The truth is no one's property. The truth doesn't belong to anyone. No one has a monopoly on it. You know, I'm not going to withhold anything or just stop doing what I'm doing. But I am going to do it in a slightly different fashion from this point forward. And for the people who truly want it, they'll get it. They'll go out and take it. And again, I'm cutting back on interaction with people. People have been disappointing me over and over and over and over. When I want to have a little bit of faith in people that maybe they're changing, maybe they're getting it, they always continuously disappoint me and show me my whatever amount of hope or faith I may have had in humanity is misplaced. This is a totally ignorant, barbaric, lazy, cowardly, apathetic, mongrel animal race. And you could say, oh, you're slipping into a dark, degenerated, poisoned worldview. Maybe so, folks. I don't know. In many ways, the level of ignorance I see most people at, and the level of just where their mindset is at in general, instead of actually doing something, I sit back and think, maybe these dark occultists were correct. I don't know. You know, I almost see myself not totally agreeing with them, but saying, you know, I can understand why they think the way that they do. That's all. I can understand why they think the way that they do and why they want to do what they want to do to people. That doesn't mean I think it's right, but I can understand it. I can understand where it's coming from in their mind, because there's a small part of me that still not necessarily thinks like that, but is capable of at least resonating and seeing why they have such a level of total contempt for people who are existing in this state of willful ignorance. Because I'm done with the excuse that it's not willful ignorance. It is willful ignorance, ladies and gentlemen. It has nothing to do with nescience, with not knowing because you had no ability to know. People who are in a state of not knowing in this world today have chosen that state. They are willfully choosing to ignore information that is all around them, capable of liberating their mind, capable of helping humanity out of the prison that it is currently trapped in. So please do not try to convince me that this is not willful ignorance of the truth, because it absolutely is. So just to go back to some of these questions I asked the people, I say, give me your website, give me your podcast that you've been on, radio shows, your articles that you've written about the non-aggression principle, the principles of self-ownership, natural law, occultism, true freedom. You know, where are those at? You know, where's your big life-changing book? Where's your big life-changing documentary video? Your worldview-changing book and documentary video? You know, your series of profound web videos, your YouTube channel, live presentations you've made. How about just point me to groups of activists, meetup groups, how about that you help organize, events, rallies that you've been behind, you know, political activism even of some kind, as you know, people can debate the effectiveness of all of that, but even that, even if it's just for awareness purposes, educational outreaches, you know, that you've helped to organize, you know. How about conferences you've helped to personally organize and spend thousands of hours of unpaid work, unremunerated work to bring together truth tellers or whistleblowers? You know? Where is all of this stuff? To anybody that wants to write to nitpick or to complain about what I happen to be doing or not doing, or other people happen to be doing or not doing. You don't like the way Alex Jones just went on Piers Morgan and blew up at him and talked over him and told people that if they give up their guns, they're idiots, or if they you know, if the government continues to come and try to keep taking firearms from Americans, that there's going to be a second hot revolution in this country, well, go put out your own message then. Go do your own work. Go do something else. People who complain are usually doing squat. So, I mean, that's really all I have to say about these armchair quarterbacks. They don't really understand the nature of the situation. But I would just love, if I had the capability of just putting one of these people in the evil, into the midst of the evil, and the psychopathy that you would witness at such a gathering, there is no way you would ever again waste your time writing to anybody, no matter who it is, trying to tell people the truth about what's really going on in the world, and waste your time nitpicking on any of their work, no matter how off you may have thought one particular thing or any number of particular things they said was, because you would recognize in your own mind where you're at. You'd recognize it, boom, like that, in a heartbeat. And you would know the level of evil that you're really trapped within. And you wouldn't waste energy on stuff like that. You would not waste energy for another second on stuff like that. I mean, people have to be completely out of their gourds. I mean, I'm dumbstruck. I'm dumbfounded. I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say. You know? People will nitpick on the tiniest of things about an aspect of the monetary system. They'll nitpick on a word etymology. They'll nitpick on the interpretation of a symbol. I mean, if you see the emails that I get where people just want to nitpick on something instead of actually do their own work, who cares whether you don't accept any of my interpretations? Who cares, quite frankly? How about that? Let's just say it just like that. Go do your own homework. I told you this from day one on the podcast, not to believe me. Take what you will and leave the rest. Go do your own homework, come to your own conclusions, and then act upon it. Okay? I'm not interested in whether you agree or disagree with me. I don't care. All I care about is if you understand the non-aggression principle. And you're willing to leave other people alone who want to be left alone. And you don't advocate for the slavery of other people through things called authority and government that are not real, have never been real, and are never going to be real. It's a claim on somebody else's body. It's a claim on somebody else's property. It's a claim on somebody else's labor. That's all these things ever have been. And that equates to slavery. They've only ever been slavery. And if you're advocating them, you're advocating human slavery. Whether you understand that or not, it's true. That's what I care about, whether people understand. Get the heart of it first. You want to nitpick on the details, you're wasting your time and everybody else's. The core message is the important aspect of this. Understand that and teach it to other people. That's the best usage of your time. People say, well, other people write to me and they thank me for everything. And they say what a wonderful, great job I'm doing. And I don't even look at emails like that as so wonderful and great. They don't make me feel that great. I mean, I'm glad people appreciate what I'm doing, but you want to know the emails that make me feel good? Somebody sends me a link with what they're doing. That's an email I feel good about getting. Okay? You know, and I'll go and look at stuff like that. Because you're actually taking some action. You're actually doing something. There's more people in the world, since you got involved in doing what you're doing, putting this information out into the world. So I feel good about those. I don't feel as good about when people say, Mark, you're doing such a great job. Thank you so much for this information, as I do when people say to me, I took an example from what you did and I did this. Or, you know, even if they say, I don't agree with what you did here and I did this instead, I'd feel better about that. Because at least they're doing something instead of doing nothing. The armchair quarterbacking is going to do nothing to change our situation, folks. Get involved. Get on the field. Choose a side and get on the field of battle. Because this is a war. And if you don't understand that, you don't understand what's going on. You're in the middle of a spiritual war. And if you're doing nothing to put information out into the world to change other people's mindset and worldview, you are not helping. You're actually helping the other side. You're helping the dark side. If you say you want true freedom and you say you don't want tyranny, if you're not getting involved in actually putting something out there and doing something on the battlefield, then you're actually helping the other side, as far as I'm concerned. Because that's what they want, inaction. And I'm telling you, the people who are really running this show right now, the people who are the owners, who are the slave masters, these dark occultists are laughing themselves into a stupor. They are laughing so hard that they have people in the mindset that all they'll do is attack each other. Divide and conquer. And people could say, well, you're doing the same thing right now. No, I'm not, ladies and gentlemen. I am pointing it out to explain to people how stupid it is. And I'm not going to spend more time on this topic. Okay, future shows are going to be dealing with more information and information-dense material. So this is the podcast where I'm trying to explain to people this is what we need to get out of doing. I'm explaining these are the people who are doing this. These armchair quarterbacks. And people who think everybody's a shill because they said one thing they don't agree with. Oh, he said he didn't talk about this aspect of this, and so he must be a shill and trying to hold that back. Well, it doesn't occur to somebody, maybe he didn't want to focus on that aspect, or maybe he doesn't even know about that aspect. No, that doesn't occur. You're automatically an agent of the state. You're automatically a shill or a disinfo agent. This is nonsense. Total nonsense thinking. And I'm telling you, the real owners are they're pissing their pants. They are the belly laughs that I have personally heard come out of the mouth of occultists. I want to find somebody to draw for me a scene that I witnessed at a ritual that I attended. If there is any artist out there that could paint, etch, sketch, draw, do a cartoon, I don't care, whatever. If there's any good visual artist that can depict a picture of a ritual that I attended, because I want somebody to try to put on paper the demented, psychopathic, evil laugh. And maybe I'll even try to find some sound recording of a laugh that can even approximate the laugh of this occultist that I once heard, who was laughing at a cop who was actually guarding the house while the ritual was being conducted. He was actually laughing and calling this cop our pets. Our pets. While he was gorging himself on food and smoking a cigar. In this dark gray suit with this ugly tie. And I'm going to go on sound pages and just try to find a deep laugh that approximates how this psychopath was laughing at this cop. And just, if I could put somebody there for an instant, I just wish I could go back in time and just put somebody in that position to just show them who their owners are. It's my only wish, to be honest. Because then your whole worldview would change in a heartbeat. You would see the level of evil and sickness that you're really up against, and you wouldn't waste one iota of energy nitpicking on the people who are actually trying to change this thing. This is the condition of most human beings in the modern day. They're in the schizoid state. They don't know who they are. They don't know, who they are or who the enemy is. And that's what's required to win any war, especially the spiritual war that we are in. You have to know yourself and you have to know the enemy. And most people know neither. And they're sitting in this state here on the right with the key to their very freedom in their hands. And you know what they're doing? They're saying, who needs that? Slap it right out of there. Throw it at the person trying to give it to me.
See, and that's what turning the other cheek really means. It doesn't mean forgive your oppressors endlessly. This notion of love your enemy. That's not what it means. Turning the other cheek and loving your enemy is not what that... These are false Christian notions. Real loving your enemy is loving those who are rejecting truth, even though they say that they want to be free. They're the real enemy because they're not getting it mentally and spiritually. They're not getting it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We have to keep turning the other cheek means you're bringing the truth to them. They're slapping it out of your hands while they're wearing shackles around their necks, ankles, and wrists and saying, there's a problem with you for telling me I need to understand freedom and what's keeping me enslaved. And then you know what you do? What real turning the other cheek is, you go pick up that key and you bring it back to them over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Please do not tell me, and again, I know that most people here in this room understand this, but the people listening out there, do not tell me, if you are unwilling to fight for your own freedom, please do not tell me that you love your children. Because you are an outright liar if you make that statement. No parent who is not concerned about freedom loves their children truly, at its soul level, at a deep fundamental level. They don't even love themselves. How could they love their children? Once again, I use the example of my own grandmother on my father's side, who will probably die in that condition of ignorance and an enslaved mind, because her ego is too calcified to admit her wrong thoughts, feelings, and actions. Would say, I know that the world is enslaved, I don't intend to do anything about it, and I don't care. To her grandson's face! You think that being can love anybody? Now, that being said, I'm not going to say I hate that person. They're destroyed at a soul level. That's a destroyed soul. I feel horrible for that person. I would never want to be in that condition, you know? I hope the person is somehow able to be reformed, but it would take literally an act of God. Literally. I don't have the power to transform a human being in that condition. I don't have that power or ability and would never claim that I have it. I'm not that powerful. That will take something that is infinitely more powerful than someone like me. But people have to, admit the truth that if you don't take an active stand for truth and freedom, don't tell me you love the generations that come after us, including your own biological children, because you don't. The people who are unwilling to fight for freedom, the state worshipers, the state enforcer thugs who follow their orders, the order followers, the house slaves, the pacifists. This is a big one for me. I talked about them. I had a whole section in Fake-Ass Christians, which, by the way, I'm going to be releasing Fake-Ass Christians publicly for free on Easter Sunday. Figured that's an appropriate day. So look for that on my website and YouTube on Easter Sunday. I release all my public material for free, but I reserve it, for early adopters in my gifts area to, get some donations in to help pay for the technology I need for a couple months after they publicly come out, after I actually have the video in my hands, whether I edit it or I have help editing it from another editor. And then I release them for free after that. So all of my info is always for free on my website. Except the very last presentation that I did, like I said, I put it out on DVD and flash drive for a couple months, then I release it for free. So, pacifists, oh boy, you want to talk about complicit with evil. These are people who would say there's never a time to physically defend yourself. How could that's a pure state of self-loathing. Pure state of self-loathing. Self-defense is one of the two pillars of enlightenment. You have to understand non-aggression. The non-aggression principle is the sacred feminine dynamic, but then you have to step into the masculine energy of the self-defense principle. And you have to be willing to defend your rights and your life and your freedom. So pacifists are unwilling to do that. Defeatists, oh, we can't win, the government's too powerful. Yeah, the people say, what do you need an AR-15 for, or an AK-47? You can't defeat the modern military. Thank you. You can't defeat the modern military with that mindset. Don't speak for me. I'll take my chances with my AK. Okay? And I may die trying. But that means I died standing up to evil who's conducting duress without any right to do so. And I would gladly do that and follow in the footsteps of people who actually did that. Because they did what was right, not what was safe. How much more time do I have, or am I already over? Okay, a few more minutes. I'm in the last section. I just want to know how much time left, but okay. The nihilists, those who don't care about anything. The traditional religionists and New Age religionists that take this super right-brained approach that, oh, it's all, God's will, or all peace and love and roses and love and light. No, there's psychopaths and monsters in this world that we need to be prepared to defend ourselves against. The left-brain, egg-headed ultra-skeptics, the people who, they're super skeptical about everything. Look, I have a scientific background. I consider myself a skeptic. But when you're so overly into the left-brain modality, that's just as bad as a radical religionist, that you won't accept anything that's taking place right in front of you. Because, that's conspiratorial. No, that's what's really happening. Yeah, they'll look at it. They'll look at a chemtrail being laid down at 8,000 feet, which condensation conditions can't even format scientifically. They know nothing about thermodynamics and fluid mechanics, and then they're going to say, "Yeah, that's water vapor that lingers up there for 6 hours." Yeah, it's not particulate matter, and you say you're an ultra skeptic and you have a scientific mind. All of these people have one thing ultimately in common. They would never lift a finger to defend true freedom because all of them ultimately are cowards without the slightest bit of true courage. They're cowards. Cowards. And folks, that's a dynamic I also don't have the power to change, because that is internal spiritual work to develop true courage that needs to be done on an individual basis, where you develop enough self-love to say, I will not be stepped upon. I will not be enslaved. You will not take my rights without consequence. You may be able to take my life, but you're not going to take my rights without consequence. And if I have to inflict that consequence, I'll do it. Maybe you'll face consequences in the afterlife domain, should there be such a place, but I'll make sure you face them in the physical world too. Because I'm not going down without a physical fight if I have to. Real freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Most people love the comfort of their lives more than they love freedom itself. But possessions, jobs, homes mean nothing and are not worth, quote unquote, having when you are a slave. Because when you are a slave, you don't really have anything. Nothing is of any real value if you are a slave. The idea that what you have is worth anything in a state of slavery is a delusion which must be dispelled in order to overcome the cowardice of inaction and to develop the courage of a true dissident. Speaking of the Black Panther movie that Ivan took me to see last night, there was a scene at the end. The truth comes through the mouth of the villains in these movies. That's Hollywood's technique to try to get you to think, oh, what he said was all wrong, when he mixes in truth with his psychopathic behavior. Very good psyop technique that they use in Hollywood. But the villain says at the end, when he's finally defeated by the hero with a spear to the chest, he tells him, we have the technology to save you. And he says, for what? So that you can imprison me? And he pulls the spear, before he pulls the spear out of his chest and dies, he says, no, that's okay. I'll take the path that my ancestors who leapt off the boats in the mid-Atlantic took, because they recognized that death was better than bondage. And then he takes the spear out of his chest and dies. Now, I would certainly argue with the approach that he took in the movie, because he wanted to become the new king and oppressor. But they're putting words in his mouth that are absolutely true to get people not to understand them as being true, because the villain spoke them, big technique going on in Hollywood right now. There will never be true freedom here on earth unless and until that level of courage is developed within the human population. We already, quote unquote, have nothing left to lose. We have to say the lost word, no. There has to be a line in the sand where we say this far and no further. And let me tell you what my line in the sand is. When speech is curtailed, or weaponry is begun to be removed or confiscated. Those are my lines in the sand. Because one makes my physical defense impossible, and one makes the communication of truth impossible. And we're seeing the first, and they're trying to get the second one done, but we're seeing the curtailing of free speech and censorship happening in this country that's supposed to be a land where free speech rights are protected. Because when the last word is not, the lost word is not accepted, and people will not back down when they're told, no, you may not come for my rights anymore, we have one recourse left, and I call that the last word. And let me tell you something, it's a loud, loud, loud word when it's spoken. It's going to be heard to the far ends of the solar system. And it's no joke and no game. You should look on YouTube at war footage and see what bullets do to the human body and what bombs do to the human body. You should psychologically watch it and understand it well. Because it ain't like it's depicted in Hollywood movies, folks. At all. At all. And that's going to come, this is going to come to America if we are not careful in how we proceed. And a big, big, big shouldering of responsibility comes directly down on the people who do understand this information that I'm presenting. Because if we shirk our responsibility to teach this widely and freely to as many people as we can reach, we're going to be complicit in what's going to happen. George Washington said, when any nation mistrusts its citizens with guns, it is sending a clear message. It no longer trusts its citizens because such a government has evil plans. Thomas Paine said, arms discourage and keep the invader and plunderer in awe and preserve order in the world as well as prosperity. Horrid mischief would ensue were the law-abiding deprived the use of firearms. The founding fathers of America explaining why it is necessary to have an AR-15 if the police and military have them. They knew and tried to tell us. See, this phrase is something I want to put out there more to help people to understand. Ultima ratio populi. It's Latin. It means the last reason of the people. Or as I like to refer to it, the last word. This is the final say and the final explaining of our rights to those who are oppressors and people who hold us in the condition of duress and slavery. And I do not want to see it have to come down to that, but if it does, just like the revolutionaries of America, I'll take that eventuality if I have to, because it will allow for the future preservation of the understanding of rights and freedom. That was the blood sacrifice that the founders and revolutionaries did for this nation. Because without them doing that, the idea of true freedom could have been buried and gone from the earth. It was preserved here in a deeper fashion than it ever has been anywhere else in the world, which has allowed someone's understanding like myself to flourish and grow about what real freedom is, because of the words they wrote and how they were preserved and how other teachings of many other brilliant men and women were preserved as well. That's what the role of real education is, and that's why conscious parenting is so important, to teach the young moral principles. But see, that's going to become harder and harder as they ramp up censorship efforts. And this is a very, very dangerous proposition for them doing this. And then advancing these gun control agendas in conjunction with the censorship. Now they're trying to control the very narrative. They're trying to control our ability to explain the reality of the situation to others. And they have no right to do this. People will argue, oh, they're a private corporation, they have every right to control this, that, and the other thing. No, they're acting as a public service, and they're allowing the propagation of one side of the story without allowing the propagation of all sides of the story. Whether the person's right or wrong, they have the freedom of speech to put their take out online. And YouTube and Google and these other evil corporations that are trying to control the internet are doing something that is going to lead to war. It's going to lead to war. Yet they're absolute traitors to this country and its people. Absolute traitors. Because as John F. Kennedy said, those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. And I would say self-defensive revolution will become inevitable, not violent. That's the only word he got wrong in that sentence. Yeah. Yep. And they're trying to make the peaceful mode of resistance to tyranny and the education of the population impossible. And when that happens, and we can't say the lost word, we're going to break out the last word. Let me tell you something. You think I'm a rebellious spirit about that? I've said before, I'm tame compared to the barbarians that exist here in America with guns. Let me tell you something. They'll fight with the barbarity of a legion of demons. They don't understand the force, the can of worms they're going to open up in this country. It's going to be, they want this blood ritual sacrifice conducted upon our own people. They want it. They want it, and they're going to get it. If we don't step up the effort to teach true morality to the people of this country, they're going to get what they want. Because as I've said before, only one side of a dialectic needs to really buy into the dialectic for the dialectic to be successful. Examples to follow: Jesus, the founding fathers and revolutionaries of early America, the black slaves of early America who fought back against their enslavers, and the anarchists of today are dissidents that embody that spiritual truth of the illegitimacy of rulership and the spirit of true freedom. We have to do the great work of first liberating our own minds from erroneous belief systems and see through the illusions that are keeping us all in a state of bondage. We must then begin the arduous task of educating others to help them to understand the principles of true morality and freedom under natural law. Because true freedom begins in the mind. And without an understanding philosophically in the mind of natural law, no true freedom will ever be found. We have to prepare for the worst. We need to recognize that deadly force may be required and cannot be taken off the table as a possible resort. Because the people who perpetuate violence and slavery and those who ideologically support them erroneously believe that they somehow have the right to perpetuate this state of duress upon us. And they may never be willing to back down from these continued extreme violations of natural law. As I said before, there are monsters and demons in this world, folks. The spiritually destroyed may not be willing to back down. The employment of deadly force is a rightful response to the evil of slavery that we must maintain the ability to enact if necessary. And that is why semi-automatic weaponry is necessary. If there must be trouble in my day, if there must be trouble, let it be in my day that my child may have peace. Thomas Paine. Freedom is never given, it is won. Thomas Paine also said, those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigues of supporting it. I would say much like all people should undergo the fatigue of defending and supporting freedom, as Samuel Adams, quote, earlier said. Resistance is victory. This idea of resist not evil, not a Christian notion, and it's got to go. Of course we should be resisting evil and tyranny. That's what our lives, our very lives should be dedicated to that. Only 3% of the colonists actually fought and won the Revolutionary War. That's what the 3 means. And don't think I'm identifying with any particular group. It's like saying, oh, you put a cross up, well, that's identifying with this particular religious sect. No. It simply means the 3% of the American revolutionaries who actually picked up arms and fought physically against their British tyrannical oppressors. And they got the job done. Namely because the British were waging a war over an ocean. They were the people... Yes. Yep. The last slide is the next slide. They were the people like you and me. They were people like you and me that said no. If they came to these understandings and acted rightly upon them, so can we. Freedom is the highest spiritual truth. Fighting to defend it mentally and physically is our natural, inherent human birthright. Resistance to the evil of human slavery is not futile. It is the path to true spiritual alignment with the very laws of creation itself. Freedom is not a gift bestowed on us by other men, but a right that belongs to us by the laws of God and nature. Benjamin Franklin. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. Thomas Jefferson. It all comes down to liberty or death, folks. They're not just words, there are choices. Life on earth is not truly worth continuing if we are enslaved. This is what the phrase liberty or death actually means. Liberty or death are the only options. There is no middle ground. The truth regarding our situation is extreme. We must take an extreme position regarding our rights and our freedom and firmly root ourselves in that truth. Freedom is the gift and will of creation. When we rise to the defense of freedom, universal forces of providence will come to our aid. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind attention. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Ivan Ariola.
And often from poor families. So they're given basic propaganda. Them bad, and some one sentence to why they're bad, and that's good enough. It's never elaborated upon. But those in the planning departments up there, like the neocons too, they all know this stuff. It's a different dimension you're in there. Where they talk about Camry and how they plan it step by step to get everybody involved and every country involved in it. And literally what the cost will be, not just financially, and the profits, by the way, as well. Yeah. But also the slaughter, the so-called collateral damage, they call it. What it'll be. Thousands or maybe millions of people. Quite calmly. And they can go home at night and sleep well. And they can't tell that to the troops. Because when you see things so cold-bloodedly, planned out in advance, including the lies of propaganda to be used, it might take a year, 2 years of propaganda to work up and to get the public ready for your war, to accept it. Then you couldn't have the troops all knowing the same thing, because then they said, here they go with this propaganda. And they wouldn't their heart wouldn't be into fighting. But the ones at the top are a different breed altogether. And slaughter is the game. There are people right now up there who are got incredible records for slaughtering people. Even in the last few episodes of it all in the US. You've got that psychopath Blair in Britain flapping his arms again. That was the first sign that Britain was definitely going to go to war too, along with the US. And he pulled him back out. But, as I say, what I'm saying here is that it's the same characters who plan generations of brainwashing. Here's the brainwashing, you must get this bunch. In 20 years we must start them on this part of the brainwashing to get the next 50 years planning. So this is how this worked out. For those who don't, most folk don't know this. We haven't a clue. It's the same with when the war starts, they're given some fake nonsense like, oh my God, somebody the Gulf of Tonkin. Oh, somebody may have seen torpedoes in the water, maybe not, we don't know. So the seas were so bad at the time. That would do it. So that was what they agreed upon would be okay for starting a war. They killed what, over a million Vietnamese, and multi-thousands of young Americans, all planned. And you see the same thing too with Syria, because Syria's been on the list. I was looking through the old stuff from the 90s of the same countries involved again, and same headlines, same exact headlines. Syria and Iran and a few other ones had to be taken out. Same ones, exactly, by the same people. And we're all living in Groundhog Day, watching it all again, for those who remember it. But the public are not supposed to know that. They're supposed to think that Syria is bad, it's the most evil empire, just like Saddam Hussein was a great Satan, and Gaddafi before him, when Reagan was in. All backed by the Neocons. Read them up, it's no secret. No conspiracy here. It's fascinating to me to watch the propaganda being put out there, and understand too the general population in their natural humanity, which are so well studied. We don't want to sit and dwell on nasty things all the time. We crack up, and they know that at the top. When they give you many other things at home to worry about at the same time, that diverts you all from thinking about the big things that are going to come down the pipe. Nothing new in this. There's nothing new in the techniques, but the amount of it in this day and age is phenomenal. I think these universities churn out thousands every year, people who are recruited by these people, and that is true. There are multi-level layers of organisations that sound very American or very British, and they're actually private, often owned by another country. Anyway, I'll get back to this article here. It's a very good article here of how women's been divided. And they're not taught real history anymore. They're taught simply to hate this group or that group. They're actually told who to hate at university, even before they get to university. When you see that this is warfare you're seeing here, when you're taught to hate, and children are getting taught to hate, you're looking at real mandated, authorized psychological warfare, which never ends up in a good fashion. Generally ends up as real war, or people slaughtering each other. That's got to stop, because it's coming from, you all know what's happening, don't you? You all know it. It's been taught and mandated. Yep. And it's time people get off this victim pyramid here to get to the top and start to accept the fact that, hey, I don't know anybody else of most countries that had a great life, that great. We didn't get Disneyland where I came from. Anything but. But anyway, back to the article again. I'm getting distracted here. As I say, it's a good article to read to give you an idea, because he puts it in a nutshell, really, how the technique works. He's lived long enough to study it all himself too. And it's a good idea of psychological warfare as well. But we are going through an awful time where you see it all emerging again as you get ready to hit the same list of countries that haven't been finished off yet from the first list back in the late 90s. And then starting with 9/11, and then they went to operation, then they got their Pearl Harbor event, and away they went. And they tried it again with Syria again, because they made this nonsense. Oh, the big start of all will be chemical weapons, because that's what Obama agreed upon.
We had the white helmets, a complete propaganda construct in Syria. They end up getting an Academy Award.
And the Oscar goes to... Okay, the white helmets.
I am Mohammed Kir Daknish, the father of Omran. We have been in so much turmoil in eastern Aleppo because of the insurgents and because of the issues they made propaganda about. The boy, thank God, is all right. He had minor injury. We were sitting in our house like this. Omran and I were spending time having fun on our cell phones. Then the strike happened. I was busy saving my family while the insurgents seized the opportunity and filmed my family when they were escaping the house for the sake of propaganda. Thank God the situation is now improving. The army is advancing and has liberated the area so we could return to our homes.
Whenever
but top economists apparently understand it. To do with the bail-ins, they're still working on the idea of grabbing folks' savings with the next crash, and a whole bunch of other things as well. So I'll put that up too. And I want to make a little mention of the white African farmers, because it's really bad. It's really bad what's happening right now with the threats on their lives. Some have been killed, of course, over the years. It goes on all the time. And I think the world should know that you can't just sit back and allow things to happen like that. It's the old story, who's going to come and help you when you're made a target for one or another groups to come for? Who's going to help you? It's rather awful what's happening and being actually encouraged to happen. For I guess other people step in too, just like South Africa, other folks stepped in behind the scenes and helped it all to happen, and then they grabbed a lot of the diamond and gold out of there too, once they had a lot of folk move out, Rhodesia as well. Nothing's ever as it seems, and even for those who end up doing the fighting, it's generally someone else who benefits. So I'd like to put these articles up on the Africans too, because it's really sad what's happening. Plus, this article on Facebook, it says their artificial intelligence software can predict your future behaviour, and they sell us the predictions on your behaviour to advertisers and others. You know, it's going to go into think tanks and the military too as well, because they'll use this stuff on you. Leaked documents reveal that the social network offers firms the ability to target users based on how they may think and act in the future, called loyalty prediction. This is in guesses whether or not a user is about to stop using a product or service based on all of the data stored on their profile. By the way, it'll also guess if you're changing your opinions on things as well, too, politically or any other way. And sell it off as well to the big agencies that run the world. It says it comes just weeks after the firm disclosed information about 50 million Facebook users wrongly ended up in the hands of political consultancy Cambridge Analytica. So I'll put that up there too. Also, the eugenics, again, getting back to Julian Huxley and all the rest of them, because they're all involved in how many of you there are, the lower classes. Goldman Sachs asked in a biotech research report, I knew this was coming, is curing patients a sustainable business model? Attempt to address a touchy subject for biotech companies, especially those involved in the pioneering of gene therapy treatment cures, and could be bad for business in the long run, because it's a highly profitable treating disease until you die, rather than curing it, right? Is curing patients a sustainable business model? The potential to deliver one-shot cures is one of the most attractive aspects of gene therapy, generally engineered cell therapy and gene editing. However, such treatments offer a very different outlook with regard to recurring revenue versus chronic therapies. Analyst Salveen Richter wrote in the note to clients Tuesday. They're doing that anyway in hospitals anyway. They take your age and everything else, and you put on a different category of priority according to how old you are and what your status is in life and the community and all the rest of it, or in society. Big difference it makes. Awfully big difference depending on who you are. But we're not a class-based society, are we? And we're not prejudiced against old folk, are we? Really? Huh? Oh yes, they are. Remember, the United Nations said a good global citizen is a producer and consumer. And of course, if you're retired, you're now a consumer. Here's one article here in South Africa. Are attacks on white farmers really racially motivated? Here are the facts. Yes, there's a problem with farm attacks and murders in South Africa. There's also a problem with violence and murder in the country as a whole. And it's true enough, there's masses of folk getting slaughtered pretty normally there in a sense. But it's getting worse. The types of attacks on the whites it's horrific, and it tortured them too before they kill them a lot. There's an elderly woman who was a bunch attacked her farm and into the home, And use the electric drills in our knees and different parts of our body and stuff, and to torture. It's death. When you see that, that's hatred. That's what